the nursing facility admissions and continued stay request process. We ask that you mute your phone and your computer for the duration of the call. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentation by using the chat feature of the technology you signed in with. Okay. What we hope to do today is to highlight some of the major points laid out in the Guide to Nursing Facility Admissions and Continued Stay Requests that was sent out in December. The guide itself can be found on the Office of Aging and Adult Services webpage. We will also talk about the very new version of the Continued Stay Request form as it was revised on June 28th. Previous presentations of this material have lasted about 30 minutes. The presentation will be presented in 3 sections. The first section speaks to initial admission, and it's simply a quick review of the initial admissions process. As you are probably aware, admission to a Medicaid participating nursing facility requires 2 components: the level of care eligibility tool, the LOCET, and the pre-admission screening and resident review, or PASR. Both of these components are required by federal regulation. The LOCET is used to establish whether or not an individual meets functional or medical eligibility criteria for nursing facility services. The LOCET is called in to the Louisiana Options and Long-Term Care Hotline and is conducted as a structured interview with someone who is familiar with the applicant's condition and needs. The PASR process seeks to ensure appropriate care for residents who are known or suspected to be living with mental illness or a developmental or intellectual disability or related condition. The Nursing Facility Admissions Unit of the Office of Aging and Adult Services is most concerned with the pre-admission screening. We refer cases where mental illness or developmental disabilities are known or suspected to either the Office of Behavioral Health, OBH, or the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities, OCDD. The resident review is a process that happens post-admission, and it is based on new information or a change in the resident's condition. Resident reviews are conducted by OBH, OCDD, or both. The PASR Level 1 screen is both a process and a document. A webinar on how to complete the screen is available on the Office of Aging and Adult Services website. The webpage also hosts a document called Instructions for Completing the PASR Level 1 Screen. The instructions provide the list of individuals deemed qualified to conduct the Level 1 screen. It does take some skill. While both the LOCET and the PASR Level 1 are valid for 30 days, they may be operating on different calendars. The LOCET is valid for 30 days beginning from the date it is called into the long-term care hotline. The PASR is valid for 30 days from the date it is signed. Thus, it's possible that one or the other of the documents will have expired prior to admission and may have to be redone. The first determination regarding an application for admission is whether the individual meets criteria for nursing facility level of care. If the individual does not meet level of care on the LOCET, the Office of Aging and Adult Services will send a denial notice to the individual with appeal rights. If the individual meets level of care and there's no indication or suspicion that the individual is living with mental illness or an intellectual or developmental disability, OAES will issue a notice of medical certification, more commonly known as the 142. The approval period will depend on how the individual met level of care. If, for example, the individual met eligibility based on receiving rehabilitation for a certain amount of time or days, then the Office of Aging and Adult Services will issue a 142 that will provide for 100 days of eligibility. Most initial 142s are for 100 days. As discussed on the previous slide, if the individual meets level of care and there's an indication that the individual is living with mental illness or intellectual or developmental disability, OAES will refer the applicant to the Office of Behavioral Health or the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities. The applicant will be sent a letter of consideration that advises them that the application has been referred to OBH, OCDD, or both. If the individual meets criteria that we will talk about on the next slide for a hospital exemption, then the hospital can request an exemption from the in-depth evaluation that would normally be carried out by OBH or OCD prior to admission. Hospital exemptions automatically result in a short approval term. If it turns out that the individual will need more than 30 days, the nursing facility will need to use the continued stay request process to request approval for those extended stay. Situations in which hospital exemptions are appropriate meet three conditions. First, the individual was admitted to the nursing facility following a hospital admission. Emergency room admissions or admission for observation don't count. Secondly, the applicant needs nursing facility care for the same condition for which they were admitted to the hospital. And finally, the attending physician certifies that the applicant will need nursing facility care for 30 days or less. And while this is a decision generally made by the hospital rather than a nursing facility, it might be worth having a conversation with the hospital about whether a request for convalescent care is more appropriate than a hospital exemption. For example, convalescent care might make sense if the original acute condition has resolved, but the individual's general condition has deteriorated to the point that they will need additional time to recover. Convalescent care requests can be approved for 100 days and might be processed more rapidly than a request for admission that is time limited. We'll next turn to the continued stay request process itself. A fillable version of the continued stay request form is located on the Facility-Based Programs tab of the Office of Aging and Adult Services website. When you get to the Facility-Based Program page, scroll down to the Continued Stay Request section. I hope that you've had at least a chance to look at the form itself. It is in effect, but we will continue to accept the old form until Friday, July 26th. That's 6 business days past the last webinar. After that date, staff will ask you to resend the packet with the revised form. With a few exceptions, the form is really very similar to the previous version. This version was developed with a small group of providers and with LNHA. Perhaps the biggest change is the method of submission. The older version of the CSR form and supporting documents were submitted via WriteFax. Unfortunately, we saw a lot of incomplete transmissions because of the size issues or just problems in general with faxing. We are hopeful that moving to submission via email will alleviate those problems, and the email address is provided on the form. Understand, though, that this is not a requirement that you use email. You can continue to use WriteFax if that makes more sense for you. If you do use email, understand that the CSR contains protected health information. Therefore, it is very important that the packet be sent using an encrypted email system of some kind. Hotmail and Gmail accounts are generally not secure. And so if you're not sure about your system, you can send us an email and we'll send you an invitation to use the Axway Mailgate, which is our encryption system. If you've ever received an email from us via 142, you've likely received it encrypted and have had to create an account. What's different about this is that this is maybe the first time that you are actually sending from the secured email system from Axway, and so that may feel a little different, but it really is the same software. The form preparer is asked to indicate what the resident's need for continued stay is. Do they need continued assistance with ADLs? Is their cognitive functioning so impaired that they need to be in a nursing home? Are they receiving or will they in the near future receive physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech therapy? Are they receiving specialized treatments such as chemotherapy, dialysis, or respiratory therapy? Is there another need not covered by the provided list? Preparers should check all that apply. The form lists the required supporting documentation. I won't read them, but you might notice that we provide time frames for the information, usually 7 or 14 days. There are 2 new items, the resident space sheet and the therapy service log matrix if it is available. You might also note that we ask if the resident received skilled care in the last 14 days. That question is there to give us some idea about what to expect in the way of documentation. If you don't have an item that we have requested, for example, physician progress notes, include a note about that on the cover sheet. The form also provides special instruction regarding individuals living with or known or suspected mental illness. As many of you may be aware, reviews for these individuals require additional scrutiny, especially in light of the Department's agreement with the Department of Justice. If you aren't familiar with that agreement, you can find out more at the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division website. For these individuals, OBH will minimally be looking for the most recent history and physical, a psychiatric evaluation if one is available, and notes regarding mental health from any source, social services, a nurse practitioner, an outside provider of mental health services. There is a link to the additional guidance from the Office of Behavioral Health on the same webpage as the fillable CSR. You'll note that we put notice of receipt in quote marks. That's because we don't send separate notices of receipt of the CSR packet per se. You will know that we got the packet because within 2 working days, you will receive either an email indicating the CSR packet was incomplete, or you will be copied on an email indicating the packet was forwarded for the next step in review. In some cases, you will be sent a temporary 142, usually for 30 days to allow time for additional review. Emails advising that the packet was incomplete will specify why it was incomplete. When you resubmit the packet, you will need to resend the entire packet, other than when you've been directed by staff to send it in parts. Submitting partial packets will end up in an incomplete notice. That's because we share our work out in such a way that the first person who touched your email may not be the person who touches the second email. If you haven't gotten one or the other of those emails within 2 working days, please check your spam or junk folder. If it's not there, contact the Nursing Facility Admissions Unit at the number provided, 337-262-1664. Complete packets are forwarded to the regional office for further review. As we discussed, once a complete packet has been received, it is routed to the Office of Aging and Adult Services regional offices, to OBH or to OCDD. OAS regional staff conduct a level of care review. The OAS level of care review can be done either as a desk review of the documentation submitted or in person. The decision about whether to do a desk review or an in-person review rests with the regional office. That's why we ask you to indicate whether the guardian or authorized representative wishes to be present in case a face-to-face review is conducted. Hospital exemptions for individuals with a known or suspected developmental disability are routed directly to the Office of Citizens for Developmental Disabilities. The review outcomes are probably familiar to you. If the individual does not have a known or suspected mental illness and meets nursing facility level of care, OAS will issue a 142. The 142 may be time limited, depending on how the individual met level of care. If the individual does not meet level of care and mental illness is not known or suspected, OAS will send a notice of denial of continued Medicaid payment for nursing facility services. The notice will be accompanied by a temporary approval for 30 days that will allow time for an appropriate discharge. If mental illness is known or suspected, OAS will refer the request to OBH. We send a lot of requests to OBH based on post-admission diagnoses that we see in the level of care reviews. If OBH finds that the individual has a serious mental illness, OBH will make the final determination about the appropriateness of nursing facility care. If OBH finds no evidence of a serious mental illness, then OAS makes the final determination. The timelines for submission of the CSR packets are included in a notes section at the bottom of the form. We are balancing the need for the most timely information possible about the individual's needs and conditions versus the need to carry out all the steps in the review process in a timely manner. That's why we won't accept a packet earlier than 30 days in advance of the expiration. We have been very lenient with these time frames, but it's been more than a year since the process was introduced, and we need providers to attend to them. It seems that sometimes we get late notices when there's been a change in key staff, so we're hopeful that having the guide will help make the process easily understandable to new staff. In the course of working with some facilities that seem to manage the process well, two best practices have emerged. One is having a calendar tracked by more than one person so that the process is not disrupted by temporary absences or staff changes. The second is conducting an inventory of the 142s for all of the individuals currently in your facility. That will help you surface any outstanding problems. Sometimes nursing home facilities have found 142s that expired years ago. And please note, though, that these are recommended best practices and they should be in no way considered requirements. Some of the common errors we see in continued stay request packet submissions are submitting partial or incomplete packets, leaving the question regarding the court order or the signature blank. We added a note regarding when signatures from legal guardians or authorized representatives are needed, and we added a way for preparers to indicate that the resident does not have an authorized representative. We also added information about what shouldn't be included in the packet. While the regional office staff or OBH or OCD may request additional information for clarification when they are conducting their reviews, having unnecessary information in the original request increases the possibility of a transmission error and can slow the review process. This final section of the presentation deals with issues that relate to both admission and to continued stay requests. Breaks in institutional care are based on the circumstance, not the time frame. So it doesn't matter if it's hours or days, it starts the process over. So before an individual can go back into a nursing facility, there must be a new PASAR, no matter how recent the last one was. But the LoCET might be still valid if it was done within the last 30 days. A transfer to another nursing facility is not a break in institutional care, so the process does not need to be redone. However, be very sure that if you are the receiving facility, that you get the documents from the sending nursing facility. Health standards will be looking for them, and you may be responsible for a CSR. Like nursing facility transfers, the process does not start over for hospital leave and return. A new level 1 and LoCET are not required. A new 142 may be required if the 142 expires while the individual is hospitalized. We'll talk a bit further about that. It sometimes happens that the hospital stay is longer than anticipated, both in situations affecting new admissions and continued stay requests. For new admissions, it's important to pay attention to the expiration date of the LoCET and the PASAR. One or both may need to be redone. For readmission to a nursing facility should call the NF admissions unit when the individual is ready to return. We will issue a temp 142 to allow time for the continued stay process to be used. Again, we're looking for the best information about the individual's current needs and condition. If the 142 expires while the person is in the nursing home, use the continued stay request process anyway. At a minimum, explain why the CSR wasn't submitted in accordance with the timelines. Currently, we look at each case separately, but understand we do need to comply with CMS requirements. Residents have the right to appeal denials of admission and denials of Medicaid payment for continued stay. However, note that temporary 142s are not denials. They are therefore not subject to appeal. Appeals are handled by the Division of Administrative Law, and denial notices are accompanied by information about how to file the appeal with them. You probably noticed that we send national voter registration materials with every notice. We are counting on your assistance in sharing them with residents. In the event of disasters, The federal agencies will sometimes issue special rules or waive certain requirements. If that happens, separate notices will be sent. Absent that notice, continue with the usual processes. And as an aside, I have never seen the PASAR requirements waived. We have resources for you posted to the OAAS webpage, Facility Based Programs tab. Among those resources are the guide to the nursing facility admission and continued stay request, instructions for completing a PASAR Level 1 screen, and the continued stay request form itself. These slides will be posted to that same website once this last webinar is completed. I'm not promising that will be today. It will, as soon as we can master the technology to do that. We also anticipate posting a recorded version of the webinar at that same site. This slide provides you my contact information and for the Nursing Facility Admissions Unit. If you need to reach me, email is best. But if you're inquiring about specific cases, it's best to call the Nursing Facility Admissions Unit. We are now ready to contemplate questions.
If you have any questions, please submit them via chat at this time. Does the family signature expire?
Does the family signature expire? No, but I can imagine it can be dated in advance of the request. You're looking at on
the CSR.
The CSR doesn't have its own expiration date. The 142 does, however. So those are the dates we're most attentive to in the way of expiration.
Referring to the signature on the CSR.
Correct.
Does the family signature expire?
No, the CSR form doesn't itself expire, but we won't accept it more than 30 days prior to the expiration of the 142.
She had a CSR. She had a CSR that was kicked back because of the date.
I'd have to know the specifics of that case. Again, you can contact an NFA admissions unit about the particular cases.
When will the information discussed today be posted on the website?
If we can, we hope to post the slides today. If we're not able to do that, it will be in the near future as soon as we can manage. I can't tell you when we will do the recorded version. We'll do that when the conversions are made and the document is ready.
Hello? Can you email me the slide?
I could do that, but it would be, if you can't locate the website, it will probably be easiest to try that. If you don't see them there by, say, Monday, send a request, but if at all possible, I want you to go to that website so that you also see what else is there.
Okay, we're gonna allow for a few more, we're gonna allow, some more time for questions to be answered. Is it required for resident representative signature on this, on the CSR?
Yes, if there is an authorized representative, yes, the signature is required. The question was, if there's a power of attorney, that would generally be a way of indicating that that is the authorized representative. So yes, if there's an individual who holds a power of attorney for healthcare decisions, you would want that individual to sign.
Are there any more questions? If you don't have any more questions, at the bottom right corner of your screen, you should see leave meeting. You may do so at this time, and then you can disconnect.